Hi guys, when it comes to the Tories, they're generally pro-Brexit, with the odd exception. The Conservatives will struggle, but they'll try their best to come up with some benefits of leaving the EU. They will of course fail, but pretty much nobody will condemn the choice to leave. When it comes to Labour, many MPs will criticise Brexit and call for the UK to rejoin the EU and the single market, but this isn't part of any manifesto, so we can't get an official position on it. So then you would imagine the LibDems will be clear in their position. Anti-Brexit, let's undo it, and let's get back into the EU as soon as possible. Well, it's a bit more complex.
Well, I think the next general election is going to be completely different to the last general election that we had. The Liberal Democrats don't shy away from that question at all. We've set out very clearly the fact that we want the UK to be at the heart of Europe. We have a four-stage plan for rebuilding our relationship with the EU. There are easy things the government could be doing right now to improve our existing trading relationship. And in the longer term, we want to increase and improve the trade deals we have with Australia and New Zealand. These terrible trade deals that are
be quite clear. You're the one party that, in a sense, could actually say, well, actually, look at these opinion polls now, look at where we stood before. Maybe what we should be doing is we should be standing apart from the others and saying, actually, we want to reverse Brexit. But you're not doing that. You're not taking that bold move.
It simply isn't possible to reverse Brexit. There is no way that we can rejoin the EU on the same terms that we had before. And I think voters, after the turmoil we've had in the last few years, want political parties to be looking to the future, not to the past. So we've set out a path for our party. We've set out a four-stage plan to rebuild that relationship and to one day end up back in the single market. So anybody who wants to support that process should definitely join the Liberal Democrats. But what we're hearing right now on the doorsteps is that people can't afford their energy bills, they can't afford their mortgages. There is a cost of living crisis, and this government is simply not giving families the help they need.
Thank you.
Okay. This is really frustrating to listen to. This idea of we're going to get back into the single market, not mention rejoining the EU. No, we can get back into the single market. It's practically impossible for the UK to get back into the single market and not be a member of the European Union, because there are two paths. One is EFTA, and Norway has said, no, we don't want Britain in EFTA. And the other is the EU membership. Now, the UK, people will say, well, we could be like Switzerland. Okay, but the EU doesn't want to go through that rigmarole once again. It was a nightmare. And there's no, it makes no sense, because Switzerland is happy with its deal so far, but Switzerland doesn't have a place at the table when it comes to rule making. The UK it would make more sense for the UK to be at the table when it comes to rule making. At the moment, it's a third country, so it's a rule taker, and it's difficult exporting and importing when it comes to the single market if you're a third country. So it makes more sense for the UK to be inside, not outside. But it's frustrating to hear politicians talk about, well, we can be part of the single market, instead of talking about EU membership. Now, why is she doing this? Why do politicians do this? They do it because I think there's this feeling that, well, we can join the single market and, have the benefits of like EU membership almost, and we don't actually have to become an EU member. This is deeply dishonest, because, as I said, the only way to get into the single market in any real term, yeah, there are some technicalities, but let's talk about reality. When it comes to the reality of the situation, you either be a member of EFTA or you become an EU member. And EFTA is pretty much closed off for Britain. So it has to be EU membership. It doesn't make any sense for an economy like Britain, one of the largest in the world, to be outside taking the rules. It makes more sense to be part of the EU making the rules. I really don't understand why the politicians are not more honest about this. This idea that, yeah, we can have our cake and eat it. We don't actually have to be a member. Is it because of the conditions that are required for the UK to join the EU? Things like adopting the euro. Now, we have to be honest here. Many countries who have joined the EU and have said, yeah, we're going to adopt the euro, have not actually done that. But is it something that would be too difficult to sell to the public in Britain, the EU adoption, euro adoption? Maybe it is, and that's why the politicians are not talking about joining the European Union and instead talking about the single market, because they can say, well, if we're a member of the single market, we don't have to have all these conditions that we would have to respect if we became a member of the EU. And in a way, it keeps Brexiteers on board because, well, we left the EU, that was what was on the ballot paper, but we're back in the single market. But once again, I think it's been a tad dishonest, to put it mildly, to sell this idea to the public. Yes, we can be in the single market, but we don't have to be in the EU. And as I said, it doesn't make any sense from an economic point of view or even a political point of view, because you want to be at the table making the rules, making the regulations, not on the outside. And how do you sell that to the public? How do you sell the public the idea that, yeah, we're going to be taking the rules once again? The public would prefer the UK to be at the table in Brussels making the rules along with France, Germany and others. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.